What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Elite 16 podcast. This is your host here, Michael Broadbent, and with us tonight we got three guests. You guys want to go around and introduce yourselves? Go ahead.
What's up, guys? This is Nick Mazzetti, the Eastern Legends, Commissioner of the American East. And that's it. Someone else. That's all I got.
Go ahead, Jack.
I thought that would be so much better. And this is Jack Smith of the Yakadelphians and the National West, Commissioner of the National West. Thank you very much.
Hi, this is Mike Tucci from the Point Breeze Football Club. I am now coming to you from the powerful American West Conference.
Ooh. Yeah, definitely don't miss that place. For sure. But, yeah, so I guess let's just get right into it. It's been a pretty hectic time in the NFL. I can't believe how much money's going out to some of these just mediocre to above average players. If you guys want to go around and each name one really surprising deal that you guys thought from the first few days of free agency, I guess we'll let our guest go first. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess I can talk about Chris Ivory since it relates to me. It has a dynasty impact. From the dynasty standpoint.
And I'm sure Chris sent you a really heartfelt message this morning.
Yeah, no, he's been very welcoming recently, as you could imagine. No, yeah, from a dynasty standpoint, it definitely gives Yeldon a hit. As much as you may dislike Chris Ivory or Yeldon, they seem to have paid him to get work. It seems like he's going to get a considerable amount of touches, just by the amount of money that they're paying him, which is surprising. Paying running backs that much money is kind of odd to me. From a football standpoint, I think it's a bad move. They spent high draft capital on TJ Yeldon, and they go ahead and do something like this. It seems that David Caldwell, the GM there, is kind of just doing whatever the fuck he wants. They
got to feel the pressure from the organization too to win now. So they got all this cap to spend and.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like the Julius Thomas signing last year, the draft in 2014, back-to-back wide receivers, right? Something like that.
Yep.
So yeah, it's confusing from an NFL standpoint, dynasty standpoint. Yeah, it hurts a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah, Chris Ivory's just going to essentially take the work that Yeldon wasn't getting as a rookie anyway. I guess you got to hope that he's going to be getting more going forward, but with this Ivory, it doesn't really look likely. What about you, Jack?
Speaking of having to make the playoffs, I don't want to say one particular deal. I'll just say one particular team. And the Miami Dolphins getting absolutely hosed by the Eagles. I can't believe that deal. Not just the trade. Now they're going and would they sign Mario Williams and I think didn't they sign somebody else? I forget. Acquiring all these pricey veterans, that works 2 out of 10 times. Mostly it fails and they're just in cap hell. I was just utterly ridiculous. Just amazing. Apparently, if you want to make a good deal, the Miami Dolphins are the new Fabian, so knock yourself out.
Ooh.
When the details of that trade started to leak, it's you remember last year when the Bradford Foles deal got all mixed up in rumors where it seemed like we were getting a first-round pick along with Bradford at some point, and then it got switched so we were giving a second. This just felt like the same thing. No way that they're going to let us move up to 8. This has got to be completely fucked up in some way. And then it turns out that's what it is. And then we survived this injury to Byron Maxwell's shoulder that apparently he can't even do a sit-up or a push-up, and they're going to go along with the deal anyway.
I guess they figured he couldn't tackle anyway, so what's a sit-up going to do for him?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So real quick with that being in that 8th spot now, it seemed like it was going to be Ronnie Stanley or somebody like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they signed Brandon Brooks. I know they need more offensive line help. Are they, what are they going to do here? It's kind of, they might have their choice between a quarterback, running back, or offensive lineman,
They're kind of in no man's land.
I mean,
Sorry, I would say for that, I would say something that the Eagles have traditionally done every offseason is when we get at the end of the season and we look at, free agency, we look at the draft upcoming, and then we start doing our way too early mock drafts, and we start plotting needs, prematurely. I think one of the things that the Eagles approach with free agency is we're going to patch up as many holes in our team as possible so that they can take the best possible player wherever they are in the draft. So I think free agency is really just about not pigeonholing yourself in the draft from their perspective.
Yeah, and it seems like there's a clear top tier in this draft. You got Laramie Tunzel, the offensive tackle. You got Joey Bosa, the DN. You got Buckner, who's the interior lineman. You got Miles Jack. You got the two quarterbacks, Wentz and Goff. And then you got one other guy. Who am I missing?
Leonard Floyd?
No, not Leonard Floyd.
Do you think Zeke Elliott?
No, not Zeke Elliott.
Ramsey?
Yeah, Ramsey. They seem to be the top tier, or at least the guys that are probably going to go in the top 7. And after that, you could definitely get a good player, but I think the Eagles might be best to move back at this point. It's almost like they moved up for free and cleared cap space.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if they move back into the late teens and add a second-round pick, maybe a future pick as well, that would be probably their best move because there's a pretty wide tier, in my opinion, from 8 to about 20. What do you guys think?
It makes a lot of sense. They were talking. Howie Roseman they were talking about Howie Roseman wanting that second-round pick. That makes a ton of sense.
I would say for that, I really don't want them to add any picks next year because if you look at what happened with the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid, and Jeremy Maclin, getting that third-round pick this year and then I think a 6th next year taken away, it wouldn't shock me at all if there was some sort of
Chase
heavy
Daniel thing
going on for Chase Daniel.
Fat Chase Daniel.
What an awful way to get punished, trying to sway that fucking loser to your team.
I know that would be like getting caught stealing a candy bar and then going to jail for it. It's not worth the asset that you were taking.
Yeah, that'd be awful. So Nick, what about a trade that you thought was, or a signing that you thought was particularly bad?
Wait, bad or shocking?
Either.
Well, I guess I was going the shocking route. I guess I can go towards the
whatever you want to do.
Well, I would say the biggest shock for me is obviously something that happened quite recently, and it's the New Orleans Saints tight end situation.
Oh God.
I did not see them signing Michael Humanawanui to a 3-year deal. Obviously, I'm talking about Kobe Slater. Because that was a situation for me that I kind of expected him to be staying with the Colts, and then when they signed Dwayne Allen instead, I didn't really go too far down the list of possible destinations. I was thinking maybe Atlanta. I heard some talk of Green Bay, and for some reason I never even thought that the Saints would be in the market because they didn't have much cap space at all, and they're kind of the ideal place that I'd want him to go, so I was just kind of jumping for joy today. It was awesome.
Yeah, you can't really ask much more when you take a 34-year-old Ben Watson and turn him into a top 10 tight end. And
same, top 6 PPR.
Top 6. And the only thing that worries me about that is they chose Dwayne Allen, who hasn't had a full season, I don't think, in his entire career in the NFL, and Lux had rapport for Kobe Fleener for the last 7 years, something like that, playing together. So that's kind of scary, but, I mean, they gave him the money. He's clearly going to get the opportunity.
Yeah.
So, got to be happy with where he landed.
There was one thing I saw on Dwayne Allen was that his rookie year, I think he was graded Pro Football Focus's #1 tight end. He was widely the best blocking tight end throughout his early career. I think they want to go and do 3 wide sets as their base offense. They're going away from the 2 tight end sets that Pat Hamilton had there. So I think they really wanted the most well-balanced, versatile tight end that they can keep in line. And Kobe Fleener has made strides with his blocking, but he's a pass-catching tight end, 100%. So
really, you and Tucci also you're double dipping on this, and Tucci's got to be happy too because he just acquired Moncrief.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very excited.
So my big signing I thought was kind of ridiculous was Olivier Vernon getting more guaranteed money than J.J. Watt on a shorter deal. For a guy who's had essentially half of a really good season. He hasn't been bad in Miami, but he's been really average until this season. And so I know the Giants are desperate. They got a lot of cap. They really need to improve that defense, but there's been some donk money thrown out in this free agent class. And a guy like Derek Wolfe has to hate himself. He signed a 4-year, $36 million deal with $17 million guaranteed in January.
Pennies.
And he's seeing his teammate Malik Jackson, who's equally as productive as him this year, get 3 times as much. He's got to just hate himself. But
well, I agree with you about your shocking signing. I was talking to a guy at my work who's a Miami fan, and he was just shitting all over that. He's like, "Give it time; they're gonna hate him in about 6 games or whatever." It's like it's absolutely ridiculous money. Like it's just I've seen him play for a couple of years or whatever it was. He's like he sucks. It's like for that money, he sucks.
Yeah, Linton's a big Dolphins fan. He's just really depressed about everything right now going on in Miami. I guess we can't do this podcast with so many Eagles fans without also talking about DeMarco Murray getting shipped off as well.
Good riddance.
I still think he can be decent as a fantasy asset, but
So do I.
But as an Eagle, I think it was just doomed from the start. What do you guys think?
I think that DeMarco Murray has a play last year. It will live in infamy as one of the most cowardly plays I've ever seen from a running back, where he's running towards the left sideline, and before he gets out, he actually turtles and slides like a quarterback. He's a 220-pound running back, and he slides feet first at the sideline to avoid a hit. It was hilarious.
Making business decisions.
He was mentally checked out of the season.
You know, the whole signing with him and the Eagles, it just felt very bitter for him. Like, I swear, Dallas didn't have the cap room, and I swear he was like on the plane, and then there was a report, he's still talking to Dallas, and it just feels like he was like, I'm gonna sign with the Eagles. Are you sure you don't want me? Are you sure? Right up until when he signed the contract, which to me just feels like it was completely out of spite, and it really was just, I don't want to say doomed from the start, but it definitely didn't look good. The way the season went was a little bit of a surprise, but I didn't see him going off or anything like that.
Real quick about Dallas, it was funny last year how Jerry Jones kept denying the rumors that they were to draft a running back, and it's crazy that they did not somehow draft a running back in last year's class. That's just a mistake, you know. So just thinking about DeMarco Murray, I don't know what Dallas is going to do from this point anyway. But yeah, is there a positive? Is there a positive correlation between like mobile quarterbacks and running back production? You know, like
absolutely.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure on that.
Is there, Nick?
So for me, I would say mobile quarterbacks specifically. Anytime that you could run the read option offense, seems like that was there has to be some kind of correlation to it, because anytime that you have a linebacker who may have the job of coverage to spy a quarterback, that's just one less person that's responsible for a lane to cover the middle. And also, I mean, if you were to just look at all of the best running offenses in the league the past few years, especially going back to like the big running back breakout year where you had Kaepernick, Cam Newton, and Russell Wilson. I mean, some of and then RG3, like the top running backs in the league were Marshawn Lynch and Alfred Morris and et cetera. So I would say it definitely helps a lot, and I think that it does wonders for DeMarco Murray's value.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, I guess for me, the data set's just so small. There has been a lot of success stories, though, so it's hard to argue against it. I mean, going anywhere is going to help them, especially if they draft Tunsil. You're going to have 3 really high-quality linemen there, in Warmack, Luan, and Tunsil, and I think they got Levitre back recently, too, who was pretty good. Not really 100% sure.
I mean, one thing you can't argue is that he's going to get the market share.
Oh yeah.
Tennessee. It's not David Cobb. It's not Bishop Sankey.
Yeah, it's
not Antonio Andrews. So.
No, he's getting fed.
Good for Blanco.
He's got to be the big winner of the last couple days.
So far, man, he's 2 for 2.
Yeah.
So before we move on from the DeMarco Murray thing, I would say last year, didn't Nick Henry draft David Cobb
Yes.
or trade from him?
No, he drafted him.
Yeah, I would say putting David Cobb on a 1-year deal, or I guess signing him to a 2 last year, is probably looking a lot smarter now than it did on the day that he did it. It doesn't look like David Cobb's going to have any chance at anything, and at the very least, Henry doesn't have many roster cloggers on his team. It's very very thin.
Contract management.
He's very streamlined.
Very
Put
streamlined.
it nicely.
Yeah, like a New York strip steak.
Yeah. So speaking of Henry, let's move on. Last week, I know we talked about teams that we thought were the best and the potential breakouts, and I don't want you guys to think that we're going to forget all the other teams in the league. So this week, we're going to talk about teams that we think
Suck.
definitely could use some. I want to say luck, but they definitely need some help at the moment. But they're not all the
They're
biggest.
definitely in my division.
All of them, probably.
And I think we should start with the most obvious team. Let's start with Chris Thurston's team. As you guys may or may not know, the lore of that team.
Miami Dolphins.
There once was a man named Ryan Fabian who came and.
Can you call him a man? Can we call him a man?
I can't say that he's still a man after Camiolo lived with him.
Ooh.
So he just burned a perfectly good city to the ground, and Thurston was left with just the burning sewage. So what do you guys think Thurston's biggest what do you think his moves have to be over the next 6 months to position himself to be competitive for the next 5 years?
If I were Thurston, I would find every 4-leaf clover I could find. I'd throw a coin into every fountain, and I'd pray to God. I mean, it's tough, and I don't know if I agree with some of his certain moves. This league is so competitive. To add older players like Ben Roethlisberger and Pierre Garçon on a 1. I don't know what that does for him exactly. I think I hope he's got what draft picks does he have?
Well, the thing is about Thurston, which is unfortunate, is that he doesn't have any first-round picks over the next 3 drafts, which I wish he had. Yeah, he has a lot of seconds and some thirds in there. I wish someone in his position had a first-round pick. That said, he can get them. He has assets to move. He has a couple running backs that have some value, and Roethlisberger, which he acquired.
Well, that's the thing. He traded 2 first-round picks for Roethlisberger.
Yeah,
that's kind of redundant.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think that he's going to unload them at some point this season. Maybe that's what I would do if I were him. There's no problem gathering, those assets and value like that, as long as you have an intention of moving them and trying to get more of a return, I think.
Sure.
What about depreciation? It's like a used car. I mean, once you change its owners, it's going to depreciate, right?
I don't
know. One thing
Go ahead, Zeddy.
On Thurston, I would say, is he strikes me as a guy who took the pizza out of the oven too early. I think
was so hungry that he just ate it hot and gooey anyway.
Exactly.
Burnt the top of his mouth.
I would say not too long ago he was in a position where he was really doing a good job of using patience as an asset and just trying to accrue as much as he can, accrue first-round picks, accrue draft picks, and he kind of started turning around this year. And maybe it was because he was so unsuccessful last season, even though he was scrapping. Maybe, I'm sure losing so poorly weighs on you, and you just want to do whatever you can to start winning. So he's got some win now pieces, but I don't know if he was primed for a win now strike. But we'll see where it goes. Right now he's got Ben Roethlisberger, Gary Barnidge. He's got Todos Con Dion.
There you go.
Yep.
And Carlos Williams, who I like a lot, actually.
Yeah, good draft pick by Thurston last year. That was so if he can continue to make picks like that, I think he'll be okay. You know,
He's done very well in the draft and the auction, so I think he knows his stuff. I think just kind of coalescing his team strategy and when he can actually get to it, and maybe it's quicker than we all think. I don't know. He definitely proved me wrong with a lot of things last year, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, just to piggyback on a lot of things you guys said, I think he did a really good job acquiring as many picks as he did. He had 2 first-round picks in 2018. He had the 9th overall pick. But he kind of changed his strategy. Like when you're rebuilding, you have to just stick with a philosophy and just continue with it until it either is 100% not going to work, or until you're in a position where you're successful and then can pivot from that.
Like what Jimmy did.
Like what Jimmy did. Jimmy came into a much better situation, but Thurston, he was doing really good. He had a lot of picks that were not favorable, but attractive, and he just kind of, I think he did get a little cabin fever, and he just decided to start making moves. He's done enough to make himself not the worst team in the league, but I don't know how much this is going to help him in the American, when he's probably, at best, the 7th best team right now.
Yep.
But, again, he did make some good draft picks. He's going to have to keep hitting home runs with his picks late in the draft, though, and keep just borrowing and stealing for guys, because he's not going to give up. He's going to put his best lineup out there each week, but it's just going to be tough. I don't know. He's got a lot of work to do, for sure, but he could be successful if he just remains patient, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I'm interested to see what he does in this year's draft.
Yeah, definitely, same. So the next team I want to talk about is Nick Henry's team. He kind of did the ultimate blow-up in this league just for draft picks last year. Made a lot of questionable trades just to acquire higher draft picks. In my opinion, he is probably best suited, and I know this isn't going to sound popular, but in trading a guy like Todd Gurley while he's still healthy, while he's still got his maximum value as a top 5 dynasty asset, and just getting a haul, just getting as much as he possibly can, because he's still at least 3 or 4 quality pieces away from really competing, and I don't see him hitting home runs with all his picks, which is what he'd need to do in order to be successful right now. What do you guys think?
I would actually vehemently disagree with you on that.
Okay.
I think that Todd Gurley is so young. Like, he'd be a rookie running back coming out this year if he came out this year, age-wise. I mean, obviously, you know what I mean. But basically what I'm saying, he's young enough to be a rookie quarterback. I'm retarded. He's young enough to be a rookie running back for the next, 2 or 3 years. I think he's 21 right now. He was 20 when he came out. I think Henry's missing pieces are all cheap missing pieces. I think they're a quarterback, and quarterbacks can be acquired very easily. I think it's a tight end, which can be acquired very easily and very cheaply. He's got Mike Evans, who's a stud. He's got Kevin White, who was a top 10 NFL drafted wide receiver last year. And he just needs a wide receiver 3. And then you have to be counting on Melvin Gordon to be better than he was last year, because you can't be any worse than he was last year. So I would say the combination of his division and the fact that it's not that he needs 3 wide receivers. If that was the case, I'd be sell Todd Gurley all day long. But I think he's in striking distance, especially because he's got a bunch of picks this year, and he's got his first next year too.
Yeah, I would say Henry should be on a hold for 1 year. Let's see what happens with his picks this year. I wouldn't be opposed, or if I was him, I wouldn't be opposed to throwing Gurley out there in a deal, mostly because he's a running back, and I'm more open to selling running backs and acquiring more insulated players. But yeah, I think Henry is in an intriguing spot. I think he can compete sooner than many people think, and I would hold if I was him for at least a year.
I'm going to have to agree with what Tucci just said. I was basically going to say the same thing. He's got to wait and see with some guys. Obviously, you want Melvin Gordon to bounce back or show something, or maybe score a touchdown. What you were saying about, Kevin White, yeah, he was drafted awfully high, but he didn't do anything at all, and it's just got to be concerning when you just can't bank on him. And then who knows what's going on in Chicago, and if Cutler eventually is on his way out of there and they don't have a replacement, it just won't be. He might be still good, but it might be enough to actually compete. And he's really going to want to see something from Eric Ebron, because I know he liked him out of the draft, and he really hasn't done much at all. So, I mean, I could see him moving Gurley, but it'd really have to be a really nice deal. I guess it would really depend on that. I don't think he'll do it, though. So, yeah, I think this is a big year for him to sit back and watch, not tank, sit back and watch, and just see these players actually start to develop and show him something.
Also, keep in mind that Henry is currently on hiatus. He's closed for business until after the NFL draft. So.
Oh yeah, that cute move he pulls every year.
Yeah. So.
Well, that's not 100% true.
Jack
That's not.
Yeah, there's a little crack in the wall, and only the Yacadelphians know. They're the only ones that know the way in.
He keeps all the premium inventory locked away in the back, but anything he deems is
well,
unimportant,
that's true.
he throws
Yes.
away.
Yes, that he views as unimportant. Yes.
So let me throw my thought process on trading away Gurley at you guys. So if you remember at the beginning of the league, I traded with Gage for Rob Gronkowski, who was like 23 or 24 at the time, for I think I traded him Gronk. I think he traded me Gronk and Pierre Garçon for Victor Cruz, something crazy like that. Now, his value is way down because he had an injury-prone label because he was hurt a couple times in a 2-year span or something like that. So if Gurley hypothetically gets hurt this year, even if it's a broken foot, he's going to get that injury tag, and people are going to have that stigma against him for probably close to a year until he proves he can be dominant for a full season again. And by that time, he's already 24, 25. You remember, Nick, LaShawn McCoy lost all his value from 25 to 26.
Yeah.
As a running back, you only have probably a 2-year span where people are really, really, really gaga over you. Like Le'Veon Bell, after next offseason, he's going to be old news. I guarantee it. People are going to be so cold on that guy, it's going to be crazy. If Henry can get an OBJ-style deal for Todd Gurley right now, I would take it, personally. But that's what I mean when you have to get a haul. You can't just give him away. You have to get a haul.
I would say for that,
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
It would have to depend on the type of owner you are. So there are types of owners that try to build a team and just run with their guys, and then there are types of owners that play the market, right? That when a guy's value peaks, you sell them, and when a guy's value is down, you buy from. Henry isn't that kind of guy. Henry is the kind of guy that is going to just have his guys and just ride them out. I think Todd Gurley will never play a single snap for any team that isn't the Mercedes-Benz or whatever the hell his team is. It's so irrelevant. Never look it up. But I
dig.
For me, Henry is the guy that bought the new car in Todd Gurley, and he's going to drive it into the ground with 300,000 miles on it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next team. Next up, we got Andrew Linton. Throw some thoughts for this guy, guys.
Tucci, why don't you go?
All right. So Andrew, he has, I think, 3 late first-round picks this year. I'm not sure what he'll do with those, but his assets are Travis Kelce, Dwayne Allen, Latavius Murray. So, this is tough. I would probably. Travis Kelce is someone I would think he would move sooner than later, and maybe Latavius Murray just because again he's a running back, and I think I hate running backs at this point. So I think that he has pieces to move, similar to Thurston in a way, except he has first-round picks, but kind of in a similar position. I think it would be in his best interest to kind of stick to a plan, and maybe try to get some value back for those players and build through the draft, really.
For Lynn, I would say, while I would agree with your assessment of those as being the tradable assets, if it was my team, I don't think he sees his team that way. If you go from from what he was putting on the trade block. If you remember, he said everyone is available but Latavius Murray and Travis Kelce. So.
Yeah, I actually texted him after that. I misread it. I thought it was Travis Kelce and Latavius Murray were available, so I inquired about them. I inquired on them, and yeah, it turned out that he.
I would say two big things happened that were in Layton's benefit. One, he's got Dwayne Allen, who is the de facto tight end in Indianapolis now, which helps him. At the very least, he can start him at wide receiver 3, while he kind of has like a cluster of wide receiver 3s. He's got also the second one would be Victor Cruz just re-signed. He restructured his contract with the Giants. So if he comes back and it's anything at all, that's going to be a huge boost for Lynn. I really see him going wide receiver almost entirely across the board in this draft coming up, with the exception that if Jared Goff is there staring him in the face, I don't think that he'd be able to pass up on getting a franchise quarterback.
What do you think, Jack?
I don't know. His team's got a lot of names, and you're building around Dwayne Allen and Latavius Murray. I don't know. It's a weird. He's got to sell off some guys here. I mean, I wasn't even the biggest Travis. I was a huge Travis Kelce fan coming into the season. Now I'm like, I just don't. The fucking Chiefs, man. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, their usage of him is
I would love to
painful.
see him on another team. Honestly, I really would love to see him on another team. And I don't see with how competitive this league is. He's going to have to do something in the draft, and just completely taking Latavius Murray off the trading block completely is, I don't know. I would listen to offers for sure. He's a running back.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, clearly the Raiders aren't 100% sold on Latavius Murray. He's sneakily 26 years old already. He's only on a 2-year deal. He's just coming off his first 1,000-yard season. I know he doesn't have a ton of mileage in the NFL, but come next offseason, if he doesn't get another 1,000-yard season, he's going to be just thrown into the dumpster. He's probably the guy in the league I'd try and trade the hardest right now if I owned him.
Yeah.
He does have some nice picks. He is in limbo though, unless he hits all those hits a home run on all those picks. He's just gonna probably be in the same position he is next year. He's got a few lottery tickets that I like, and Smelter and Janice, but he's got a lot of washed up guys on his team. He's got Justin Hunter, Vincent Jackson, Percy Harvin, Victor Cruz. Like, he's just got like the all 2007 team. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tight. It's just like all these teams that we're going to talk about tonight, just in that limbo position. It's hard. You really need to make a decision on your plan and stick to it,
Absolutely. So the next team I want to talk about here is Johnny Mac.
Johnny.
Who wants to start on Johnny?
I would have no problem starting on John, because John's a guy that I've actually been in contact with this offseason, surprisingly. He doesn't really talk to many people, but he'll talk to me.
Yeah, that's weird. His radio transmissions must only go to your frequency.
Well, he talks to me, but it's all complaining. Go ahead.
Yeah, Johnny and I have those Nextel chirpers where we just buzz each other, and yeah. So Johnny Mac's got a very, very interesting team, and it was pretty much his franchise was salvaged by one trade he made last year, which got him Blake Bortles, which you can say that Blake Bortles looks like he could potentially be a foundation player for a dynasty team, and he's a quarterback. He's young, and quarterbacks play forever. So Johnny Mac bought himself a whole lot of time to be able to try to build something around it. The problem is that he's really got Carlos Hyde, and that's kind of it. He can squeeze another year out of Antonio Gates, which I'm assuming he's going to franchise him. But he's losing Tom Brady, who was his best player, really the one guy that kept him in any games last year. And he's still got Bryce Petty on a 4-year deal, which is insane. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's really nothing that I like about Johnny's team outside of potentially Carlos Hyde, and it sounds like San Fran was trying to court Doug Martin anyway, so they're not that happy with the running back situation.
It's Chip Kelly, so he's going to get 2 or 3 more.
Going to get 2 or 3, yeah. the only thing that Johnny has is he's been really disciplined with his picks. He hasn't been trading away his first round picks like he had in the past. So he's got the 11th and 17th this year because he sold his re-signing to Tucci and got the 17th. And then I think he's got his first round pick. He's got a first round pick in 2018, which I think is the Onyebenes, which can be a potentially high pick that year. So
Sure.
he's not completely barren of assets, but his team is not looking good. Potentially the worst team in the league, to be honest.
Yeah, unlike Thurston, I'm concerned about John's drafting this year. Last year, his first pick at 22 overall was Devin Smith, who he took over guys like Buck Allen, Tyler Lockett, Matt Jones, Jeremy Langford. I think that you could have done a better job. To quote Andy Reid, he's got to do a better job in the draft. And let's just hope he brings it this year because that's going to be a big turning point for him if he can hit on some of those picks.
Just to piggyback off of what Tucci said when you talked about how he took Devin Smith, the year before he pulled the Cleveland Browns pretty literally, and I believe with like the 17th pick took Manziel, which was like such a bad pick. And I mean, I can't say I thought it was going to be that bad at the time, but yeah, it was pretty bad. And you look at his team, and going up until now, he just, sorry, somebody's ringing my doorbell. Instead of using the key to get in the house, they're going to bother me, so I'm a little distracted. Instead of selling some guys off, I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'll pick up where Jack left off here. I think the track record for his drafting is well documented as pretty subpar. I think his first and second round draft picks in this league so far have been Johnny Manziel, Kadeem Carey, Devin Smith, and Bryce Petty. And yeah, you're just not gonna do anything when you're just hitting duds every single time.
Yeah.
His roster really every single person seems to be over the hill other than Blake Bortles, in my opinion. Sneakily, Carlos Hyde turns 25 in September. He's not the guy that I think everybody thought he was going to be, especially after that opening game against Minnesota. He'd be another guy I'm trying to sell super hard on, if I had Carlos Hyde, but I don't, thankfully. Jack, you want to finish what you were saying?
Yeah, real quick. Just basically, like a couple of moves he made. He was very reluctant to trade off guys when he should have. Such like last year, I actually tried getting Blount off him because I have no running back depth at all. He just wouldn't do it, and I was offering like
I tried the same.
Pretty decent second round pick, and he just wouldn't do it. And he wouldn't trade Deshaun, and he wouldn't trade certain guys. And even going back to a couple of years ago, I believe maybe it was last year. I think he franchised Brady and signed somebody else long term, and it was like, what? I know the one. I think it was Cutler.
That was
I know he's younger, but Brady's like.
That was after he franchised Rivers, and he couldn't sign Rivers again. So then he franchised Brady. I was like, what's the point? You're losing all your guys. You're losing all your quarterbacks.
Yeah, it was just an odd move. Now he's going to lose them, and it's just some interesting decisions that led to this situation he's in now. And yeah, I think he should just break down what he can and just go from there.
It was a series of unfortunate events.
Yeah. And I think one last thing I would recommend is for J-Mac to understand the scope of trading. Like, I don't know if you guys have dealt with the same thing. Like, you'll be talking to him about something. It'll be like a second round pick. And he'll be like, oh, yeah. How about Devontae Parker? I'm like, I just drafted him 5th overall. I'm not going to throw him in for a second round pick. He's like, all right, what about this guy? What about Rodgers? And then it just tails off. Like, I think his eyes get a little bigger than they should in trade negotiations a lot. And
absolutely. I asked for it was between Blount and who was with New Orleans? Who are the running backs?
CJ Spiller.
Yeah, Spiller probably.
CJ Spiller, and he like laughed me out of the building, and I just I was talking like second round picks here, and I just didn't think I was being that ridiculous. It's like the conversation almost ended before it even started.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know.
Yeah,
Very reluctant to make moves. I feel like he thinks he's always getting, the short end of the stick.
I was actually getting housed with that recently from Johnny Mac. I have the 18th pick, and I'm trying to creep up just like pick by pick. So I'm trying to get the 17th from him in the swap. And he's I'm throwing in assets and whatever, and he's listening, he's thinking about it. And then I think I got him close. And then he'll come back and be like, give me the number 2 pick, and I'll swap with you. Like, where does that come from? You're not getting that.
Yeah, pretty much what I've experienced too.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right, let's move on to the final team we haven't discussed. The Odabenes. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Onyebenes.
Ogunabene. Yeah, that's it.
Ogunabene.
So,
Soft G. Only.
Yeah, the G.
from my perspective, they're doing things the right way. As a big of a pain in the ass as they are, I think they identified pretty quickly that their team wasn't going to compete, especially in the American. So they started making trades, and really, they've done a really good job of maximizing the value of their guys.
Insane.
But at the same time, I still don't think they understand the value of their guys. They've just kind of gotten, I wouldn't say lucky, but they've definitely gotten the advantage on pretty much every trade they've made, in my opinion.
I would say lucky. I would. I mean,
yeah.
You look at
Dante Moncrief
some of the trades they've made. It's like
2 first-round picks. I want to call that thing.
Yeah. They were trying to get a little bit more than a first for a really long time for Dante Moncrief.
Yeah.
And just like guys like C.J. Anderson, like they're not trading anybody unless they get 2 first-round picks.
You're not in the conversation unless you can say first-round pick.
Yeah.
And the Ben Roethlisberger ones gets me. It's like they were trying to move Devontae Freeman, and you know how high the price was for that? It just jumped because of what they got for Roethlisberger.
We're enabling them is what we're doing.
Yeah, so right now the Onyebenes are looking at 3 first-round picks for Devonta Freeman, and I don't really see that happening. But
no,
you really can't argue with them for trying because they've pretty much every time that they've stood pat on something, they've wound up getting it. So it's going to take, I guess, a good deal of time of not getting a trade done to start to come to terms with the fact that they've really got the best deal on the table that was possible for a long period of time, and there's not always going to be deals like that to be had.
Just to clarify on the Moncrief deal, it was Moncrief for the 13th overall and the 16th overall next year, so it's a pretty good deal, in my opinion.
I don't know if we have picks set in stone next year, especially.
Oh yeah,
I didn't know you had my pick.
I think it was supposed to be the 16th overall until Chris Ivory signed with the Jazz. Yeah, I think it could have got knocked down a couple of tiers. I don't know.
Yikes.
Yeah. I think they've done a good job overall.
Me too.
But
yeah, I guess right now, just like the final count that they're looking at in picks that they have, I think they have 5 first-round picks in 2018, 1 first-round pick next year, and I think 1 late first-round pick this year, the 13th. So, and that was from a team that had absolutely nothing. They really got 2 or 3 first-round picks for pretty much every player, which is kind of insane.
I think the most interesting thing going forward is how much patience do they have and how much discipline do they have, especially next year is looking to be a very, very good class for rookies. I think they're going to try and throw those picks into next year, and it's not going to really work probably as well as they think it will. In 2018, there's a few guys you could identify right now who are probably going to be high picks, like Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk's looking good, but you don't really know until until the year before probably. So they're going to own that class, but like you saw with Olsen, how can you hold on to those picks? Like I think he had 8 first-round picks in 2016 at some point, or 5 or something crazy. At least 6.
It's probably around 8. It's like 4 or 5 went for OBJ.
Yep.
And he still had some because
didn't
2 go for Morris?
Yeah. Or Cobb, I think he traded for.
Yeah.
I might be confusing years.
It's not easy to wait that long, especially when you're a new owner.
He had a shitload.
Yeah, I would say that's something that when you look at a team and you try to plan out how they're going to be, especially when you're trading for like picks in 2017 and 2018, you could wind up with exactly what you alluded to, Mike, which was that Jeff Olson situation where Jeff Olson had the worst team in the league, but he had all these picks. So he was very quickly able to turn those assets that weren't, actually something you can get fantasy points for to actual, real players. And he went from worst team in the league to division winner in one season. And you could see the Onya Benus do something like that where there's a good chance they're going to be the worst team in the league this year, and a good chance that they use all those picks that they have and actually invest back into players the following year. Because, like what we saw with Thurston, people don't like to lose and get blown out for a long period of time. Like one season wears down on you. It might sound easy to say like, all right, well, I'm going to rebuild for a couple of years, but after you go through a first season, you really start to say like, hey, this is my time. I want to make it happen. So I can see it happen.
You know that from your first season in the league, Nick.
Yeah, it was terrible. That was I was trying to play like I'm gonna tank for the first season, not tank, but rebuild and just do whatever I can to go year 2, and it was brutal. It was terrible.
Yeah. All right, so we talked about all the teams that we didn't talk about last week. I hope that these owners that we discussed tonight don't get discouraged, and maybe some of the advice we give them, they take some of it, they tell us to fuck ourselves, whatever. I hope that they improve their teams over time and and stay in the league because longevity really helps. What we're going to do next is we're going to talk about the trades from this offseason. I know this was requested by a certain owner in the league. I'm not going to mention their name. But the first trade of the offseason officially was the number 1 fantasy asset of 2016, the 15th overall pick, and the 41st overall pick for Stephon Diggs on a 1-year deal. Nick, since you were involved with that, do you want to talk about the number 1 fantasy asset of 2016 and why you traded him for just Stephon Diggs on a 1-year deal?
Devontae Adams was the guy that I called my shot on him. I thought he was going to be the guy. Everything was lining up beautifully. And it just came down to when it came time to perform, Devontae Adams is not good. And it took me way too long to learn that with Trent Richardson. And I wound up losing everything on him, just riding him out. And from following Devontae Adams as much as I did last year, it just became painfully obvious that it didn't matter how highly he got drafted, it didn't matter what offense he's in. He was not performing well. He was laughably bad. And
to put it kindly.
Yeah. And so I was looking at that, and I had the 15th pick this year, which, I think I'm a pretty good drafter. I haven't really had to draft anything yet, but I think I could get someone there. But Stephon Diggs was a guy that has just really flown under the radar because he started out hot and then cooled off so much that I think people lose perspective that it's a rookie season and you're going to hit a wall and you're going to start to get more attention than you have before, and you got to learn how to fight it. So Stephon Diggs is a guy that I am 100% bought in on, and I fully plan on using my re-signing next year to lock him up long term.
Yeah, I think coming into work that day, he had 21 targets, 8 catches, and like 79 yards. And looking at you, it was like a guy who came home and knew his marriage was over.
Yeah, exactly what it was like. Because he was just getting an insane amount of volume, insane amount of opportunities, and his production was not even coming anywhere close to that. And I just didn't see him being successful. And I'm trying to get better at cutting ties when something is done.
Yeah, definitely.
I have to say real quick on that, I really am surprised. Well, I don't want to say I'm surprised because he was horrible, but I really liked when you got Devontae Adams. I guess it was last year, and just to see how he played, he just trailed off. I think it was a smart move. I didn't see it coming, but yeah. Well, I wasn't all that surprised.
Since we have 2 of Devontae's last 3 partners here, Tucci, I know you got him for 12 last year from, I think, Hess.
Yep.
Talk about what you liked about Devontae and why you moved him so quickly after you got him.
What I liked about him was pretty much just the 2014 playoff game against the Cowboys. I watched that game a few times in preparation for the acquisition of him. Kind of like Mazzetti, I thought with his size, his metrics, I thought were good enough. His situation in Green Bay, I thought it was easy, I thought it would be an easy situation for him to produce, and I probably would have hung on to him a bit longer than I did if Camilo didn't come calling for the Demaryius Thomas deal, and he was part of that, so he got sent away. But yeah, I think up until this past season, I was a fan of Davante Adams, but I can say officially now, I'm off that train. I just don't think he's very good at football.
So you weren't necessarily down on him. You just couldn't turn down getting Demaryius.
Yeah, I would say it was
Gotcha.
more. It was more. I was still a supporter of Davante Adams at that point. Yeah, it was just it was a name that was brought up in the deal, and I was fine with parting with him. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
All right, so the next deal we're going to talk about is Nick gave up the 21st overall pick and the 30th overall pick for Doug Baldwin on a 4-year deal. I thought this was one of the worst trades of the offseason. When you have a guy who's 27, 28, coming off a breakout year, you can't give him up for this little, especially at wide receiver. And I think Baldwin had this. I don't know what it is about receivers who break out when they're like 27, 28. People just assume they're younger or feel like they're younger because they're just kind of like coming out of nowhere in the traditional redraft sense. But I thought he could have gotten at least a decent first-round pick for Doug Baldwin, somewhere between like the 6th and the 8th pick or a future first. I thought he gave him up for nothing.
I would say 6th and 8th pick is a little bullish on what people are thinking, because you have to look at the trade market for Antonio Brown. And I'm not saying that Doug Baldwin is Antonio Brown, but it took Antonio Brown 2 years of elite production to be accepted as a top-tier wide receiver in our league. Because anytime that you're 5'10" and under, like 190 pounds or whatever, and go undrafted or drafted in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, you have to put together a long enough degree of a body of work, and they just haven't done that. So I think Doug Baldwin strikes me as a guy that's going to continue to be undervalued for the next couple of years, which is why I was more than happy to pay that price for him.
Here's my thing. We were just talking about Thurston, and it's like you gave up 2 first-round picks for Roethlisberger. You acquire Cameron Jordan and Pierre Garcon, but Doug Baldwin on a 4-year deal, you trade, I guess for essentially peanuts. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
For that, I would say this was before he did the whole win now stuff. So I think at this point he was still very much in like long-term older player, get young assets, and then he kind of triggered to the other end.
That's what I'm saying. What was the trigger? Like if you move Baldwin, what trigger made you go the other way? It's just interesting.
Don't know.
Yeah, that goes back to consistency there.
The Doug Baldwin deal really it's one of those deals that upsets me because like I would have loved to have been in on that bidding war for him. He was arguably one of the most efficient wide receivers last year. I think at least a first-round pick for him. I think Thurston could have got more value back for it. The steal for you, Nick, on that one.
Definitely.
4-year deal, man. Shit.
The next deal is a smaller deal. Nick traded Ryan Matthews on a 1, the 46th pick, the 47th pick. Well, it was smaller at the time. I'm sure it wouldn't happen now. For Cody Fleener on a 2-year deal on the 50th pick. I think Nick was just looking for as many tight end flyers as he can get, and looks like this one's gonna hit harder than most thought it would.
Yeah, I was desperate for a tight end at the time. I was talking for Clive Wolford very cheaply from Jimmy. I was trying to talk Charles Clay cheaply from Tucci, and eventually the price point that I found that I liked was Kobe Fleener, and I really didn't expect his value to blow up like this. I thought he was going to stay there and kind of blow up as just the number 1, but going to the Saints is going to do wonders to revitalize his value. And really, just I'm kind of worried about Jimmy Graham going into the season. I think he'll be fine long term, but week 1, I was very worried about my tight end situation, and I'm not anymore.
All right.
It's funny. It's like I was talking about this trade with not this. Well, we brought it up because of some of the signings and moves today in the NFL, and I automatically assumed that Fleener was already on your team because he's your guy. So I was kind of surprised that you actually had to trade for him, but of course it works out for you. So
Fleener's the guy that I've
good
had
for you.
kind of like every league, and he's a guy that I originally drafted in the elite, and then sent away in part of a deal with Eli Manning to get a first-round pick, and it was nice to have a good old Kobe come home.
All right, so then there's no more about that one. The next trade was Jimmy trading the 12th pick and 2017 first, which was his, for Jordan Matthews on a 3-year deal and the 34th pick to me. So my thought process on this was, at the time, Jimmy was awful. He was coming off, the worst record in the league. I was really trying to add another 2017 first-round pick. Jordan Matthews, I was expecting to take a much bigger leap this year, and it was really disappointing seeing him struggle as much as he did at times. So I wanted to sell when, I thought the value was high, and I got 2 first-round picks for him. I kind of like what I got, especially now.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm actually surprised you did this. I still really like Jordan Matthews a lot. I won't say that you didn't get an appropriate return on him, but man, I think it's just a matter. Unlike Devontae Adams, I think he actually has what it takes to be a productive wide receiver in the NFL. I'm still all in on Jordan Matthews. He has the size. He was productive, like really young, in college. And yeah, I like him a lot. So I was surprised that you were that willing to sell on him this early.
I think if Jordan Matthews got 3 more yards this year, you probably could have got 4 first-round picks for him. Because he was 85 for 997, and that's just anytime you see that 1,000 mark, it just does wonders to a guy's value. I would say the most interesting thing about this trade, I'm not going to comment too much on the value of it, but the timing of it was incredibly interesting, because this trade broke down and was released the same exact day that Calvin Johnson was rumored to be retiring.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have made the deal had that announcement come the day before.
Yeah, so I'm sure you were looking at your team and you saw wide receiver as a position of extreme depth and flexibility.
Luxury.
Yep.
And yeah, it was a luxury, and kind of trimmed the hedges a little bit on that, and then one of the other branches fell off. It was kind of interesting to watch.
Yeah, if I didn't have Devontae Parker, I wouldn't have made this deal. I wanted to have 4 guys I really thought could be producing receivers, and I just thought I had excess, so might as well.
You traded Jeff Janis. Why did you trade Jeff Janis?
Come
on.
I needed to move him to move up, and he went to a nice home.
That's nice.
I would say 4 wide receivers and 3 running backs is kind of like the sweet spot that you want to be in, because it gives you some flexibility if a guy doesn't pan out, and also gives you bye-week fill-ins.
Yep.
I'll be honest with you, I like the deal. I really do. You got a nice pick next year. I know we think Jimmy will turn it around, but until I actually see it, and you got the 12th pick this year, and Jordan Matthews, I mean, they we'll see, but they really only view him as a slot receiver right now. Who knows what's going on in Philly, although they have been making some nice moves. And he's a little bit of a drop machine lately, so I actually kind of like the deal for you. Anything could change. It was his rookie season, or I'm sorry, it's his second year of the league or whatever. And I don't know. I look at what you got, and I don't think it's all that bad. I mean, 2017, Jimmy's pick, that's not too shabby.
Yep. So the next trade was Nick traded 3 2018 seconds for Matt Ryan on a 5th quarterback depth move for an average quarterback.
We're skimming over the LaShawn McCoy deal.
All right, sorry. Yeah, we are. So yeah, this is a little more impactful. Jimmy traded the 14th pick and a 3rd-round pick in 2017 for LaShawn McCoy on a 2 to Andrew. I mean, if you can get a first-round pick for a 27, 28-year-old running back in this league on a team that's got to rebuild, I mean, with how our trade market is in the elite,
It,
I
it
don't
was
know.
it was one of those things where you just like this threw cold water on you and really just like it really slapped you in the face with the reality of the running back market in our league, which is that running backs are like even if you're a premier player, even if you once led the league in rushing or whatever, like you're not going to get a haul for them because teams have such little confidence that that player is going to be able to one stay healthy for an entire season and also stay productive for multiple seasons. So it's just very interesting to see a late first round pick this year go for such a premier player like LaShawn McCoy.
Well, I kind of disagree with you there. If you take a look at what the Ugnabenes are doing, that is dictating a market price. What Linton did with this trade is he got the best that he thought he could get from this individual. That doesn't mean that's what the market price is. That means that's the best he can get from one guy. Had he went and truly canvassed and gotten the best deal, he could have gotten better. But that's not what he got.
Yeah,
I disagree, but
I would say if he were to wait closer to the season when teams are looking at the roster and they haven't been able to close in that RB2 or the RB1, you definitely could have got a potentially mid-round first, something like that, potentially two first-round picks.
anything from you guys?
No, it's a common theme is canvassing. Talk to other people. If you have a deal in place, don't feel bad about reaching out to someone else and see what you can get. I mean,
Yeah.
this is happening a lot, especially this past off season.
I think intelligent canvassing is helpful. Like if you know that somebody needs a running back and you're making a deal with them and you know there's another team that needs it, like go to teams that you think might be interested in what you're offering. Don't go to every team because that's going to be fucking annoying. You got to know your league mates, what they fall for.
Know your audience. Know your
your
audience. Do
audience.
some research. Yeah.
Yep. And that's just a general piece of advice for everybody. Don't make a deal
No, I
with
agree.
the
I
first person.
don't think you should have an email Camiolo message saying guys on the block. I think you should actually start a dialogue with certain teams you've identified need the player. I'm guilty of this myself. I've traded somebody to one team and not really looked around because I've seen what I've liked. That being said, I don't know. The deal, it just leaves me with broken ribs. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. All right, so I had a little premature trade mentioning here before, but Nick traded 3 2018 seconds for Matt Ryan on a fifth. Who wants to take this one?
I think Pro Football Focus should. I think they had a nice write-up on Matt Ryan, and I just find it funny that I started reading the site, and it was like a couple of days after this trade went down, and they were all over Matt Ryan. But I know Mazzetti does his work. I'm just busting your balls. I mean, for a backup, I mean, you gave up some nice what you would think be high second-round picks in Thurston and Jake. But at the end of the day, they're second-round picks, and this is a starting quarterback signed to a 5-year deal who, whether you move him or keep him, it's a solid move. Like, I've always liked Matt Ryan. I don't know how much. It always teeters, but I think it's a real solid move for both parties. I mean, I don't know if Andrew sees Matt Ryan in his future, depending on how he's rebuilding. And I kind of like the deal for both sides. I mean, because of the re-sign, I kind of lean towards Mazzetti on this one here. But, yeah, it was really solid.
Yeah, this year going through Andrew Luck's injury, I guess before this year I thought that quarterback was a position that I didn't need a backup at because quarterbacks don't get hurt. And then my quarterback got hurt, knocked out for the season, and I was faced with the hard reality that they do. Matt Ryan seemed like a great buy low guy. He didn't have his best season, but over the past 4 years, I think he's number 2 in passing yards to Drew Brees. So he's a guy that's going to put up volume. I thought it was just I'll give 3 picks that I like a lot that aren't going to be first, but they're going to be valuable for one less position to worry about.
Yeah, I think backup quarterback's just replaceable. Like I have a pretty good backup quarterback, but had I not drafted him, I don't think I would have a decent quarterback. Like, you traded a backup defensive tackle for a guy who was a top 8 quarterback in the second half of the year. I think there's always going to be a
Not
team.
very lucky, but yeah.
There's always going to be a team that has 2 at least quarterbacks who are performing well who doesn't need both, in my opinion.
Yeah, but also for me, going back to the inaugural draft, Matt Ryan was a top 5 quarterback for me. Like if I were to be drafting a team, he would have probably been like number 5 on my list, and he stays pretty high up there anyway. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's been productive with volume. He's got a very high floor, and he's got Julio Jones to throw to. So I'm a big Matt Ryan guy, and even if he's my backup, he's an insurance policy. I'm willing to pay a decent premium for.
Yeah, any thoughts?
Just to, real quick, not to cut you off, Tucci, I'm sorry, but just to, I like him as your backup, but I also like him as a piece that you could possibly move to a team that maybe thinks that they're on the cusp and could use a quarterback or something like that, because you got him signed so damn long, and like you said, he's got Julio. So yeah, I also like him from a trade chip aspect.
Yeah, I actually thought Mazzetti got a good deal at the time. I still kind of do. I still have a lot of faith in Matt Ryan. He's not a top 5 guy for me, but he's. I don't know. Quarterbacks are tough, especially in this league. And when you give 3 distant second-round picks, I think it's a good deal, especially for someone that has his track record on a 5-year deal. So yeah, I think I like it for Nick.
Cool. The next trade we got is Hess trading Derek Carr on a 4-year deal for a 2017 second and a 2018 second, and he's getting back Gio on a 2, Jalen Strong on a 4, the 17th pick and the 22nd pick this year. Jack, what do you think about this?
I think Jimmy's awfully high on Derek Carr. I mean, he played really well. I like him. He's 4-year deal. It actually makes sense for Jimmy to move the pieces. Well, they're a little young, but I mean, it depends on how long his rebuild's going to be. I do think giving up the 17th and the 22nd, which is pretty close to the first round, along with a guy like, I know Gio's behind Jeremy Hill, but Jeremy Hill did not have a good year.
No. Gio's RB1 all day.
I think that's a lot to give up for Derek Carr, as much as I like him.
I actually love it for Jimmy, and I like it for Hess too, because Hess had redundancy at quarterback, and Jimmy is one of those guys that's just closer than he thinks, and closer than I think a lot of teams think. I really buy Derek Carr as one of the better foundation quarterbacks in the league. Yeah, I mean, I really like Jimmy knocking out a nucleus on his team, one less position to worry about, and he's in a position now after, like, this was after the McCoy deal, so.
Yeah, Jimmy's a playoff team this year, no doubt about it in my mind. For sure.
Yep. Yeah, I think Gio kind of became expendable in that deal, and he's got the first overall pick this year, so you're probably looking at Zeke. So Zeke and LaShawn, yeah, I'd be fine with that backfield and everything else he gave up to get Derek Carr.
Yeah, I think I don't know. It's just one of those trades that I could easily see one side being a huge benefactor over the other. Like, he could strike out on both those picks, and Jalen Strong could just be a head case. And Gio, I think, really benefited from scheme changes more than almost any guy this offseason, because Hugh Jackson just insisted on being a pounder with his offense and kind of phased out Gio. And he had, I thought, a promising rookie year that, I don't know, depending on the new offense, I don't know who the offense coordinator is there, but I think Gio could be an impact guy again. A good buy low. The next 2 trades are defensive.
I know we talked about how quarterbacks are pretty easy to acquire. It's just, I know he's young. It's a lot. It seems like a little. I'm surprised it cost. I don't want to say that much because it wasn't a lot, and I understand what you're saying about him being expendable, but I don't know. It's an interesting one. I think there's a lot of risk on both sides.
Yeah. All right, the next 2 trades are for defensive players, so I'm not going to talk about it.
We got to
dumping contracts.
Yeah. So Camiolo traded Kyle Rudolph on a 2 and the 34th pick and the 2017 third to Thurston for the 18th overall pick. This was a trade that was broiled in a little bit of controversy because he originally tried to trade a 2019 first along with the deal, and it got canceled, and then it got redone for this pile of trash. Sure, Kyle Rudolph's not that old, but I don't know. It's just not a good trade.
Thurston can do better at the 18th pick than Kyle Rudolph.
Agreed, especially if you want to get a tight end. I mean, you can have your pick.
Yeah, I mean, you can get the number one tight end on the board, like Hunter Henry at 18.
Yeah.
I don't know why you'd want to, because tight ends take way too long to develop anyway. You're probably better finding one in free agency.
Yep. He'll learn that.
It's a very deep wide receiver draft, and he's probably going to be upset at the wide receiver that's going to be there at 18.
Yep. So the trade after that one.
Nah, I couldn't agree more. Seriously. I know all about Rudolph, so.
Tucci traded the 9th pick for the 13th pick, 21st pick, and the 2017 too. I don't really get this from Thurston's perspective. I think he needs as many bullets in the chamber as he can get. But what do you guys think?
Real quick, I like trading up. I just don't think it was a big enough gap to cross to trade what he traded. So like I like the practice. I just don't. It wasn't a big enough jump for me.
Great trade for Tucci. Yeah, I've kind of entertained a couple of trade downs, and I'd be looking for something probably even half is what he got. So great haul for Tucci.
Yep.
Yeah, I like it for Tucci too.
Traded Roethlisberger on a 4-year deal, using the re-signing for 2018 first-round picks, Tucci and Camiolo to Thurston. I think it was a bad trade for Thurston. Can't give up 2 first-round picks for a 33-year-old quarterback on a bad.
You already heard my opinion on this.
Bad. Yeah.
This is where it all became unraveled.
Thurston's involved in a lot of these. I don't want to keep pounding him over the head, so it's just.
Yeah. He also traded Dion Lewis, or traded for Dion Lewis on a 5 and 18 for 9. Jack got essentially a 5-year deal for nothing from
that
Henry.
Was insane.
Yeah, I don't even. That's unbelievable. Yeah, don't even want to talk about it.
Move back 4 spots, get us a 5-year deal. Yeah.
So this is why Henry needs to be involved all year long.
Yeah.
So that he can actually keep his finger on the pulse of the market, so he doesn't get swindled for something like he just gave away a very strong asset. He could have got the 17th pick.
Exactly, which is what I did, and that's such a rarity. What Jack got, that's just
crazy.
Yep.
I thought it was fair, Neil.
I'm sure you do. Andrew traded the 8th pick and the 28th pick.
Speaking of fair deals.
For Jeff Janis on a 2, the 12th overall pick, and a 2017 2, Odubene. I really wanted to move up a little bit in the draft, and I feel like this trade was relatively fair. What do you guys think?
It was fair depending on how much you like Janis.
I love Jeff Janis. I think it's fair.
Yep.
Yeah.
I am not #Team Janis, so okay. I'm more on the side of your haul.
Well, talk to me after next offseason. I might change, but I'm still Team Janis this year.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I still like Janis a lot too, but other than Tucci, I don't think I was going to get much, and Tucci didn't really give me a good feeling.
No, I did, but you admitted that that happened quickly, and you had to take that deal.
Well, you offered me a second, and I was.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure, okay.
Anyway, Nick traded Pierre Garçon, Cameron Jordan, a 3rd and a 2nd for Logan Thomas in the 19th pick. Clearly, just Nick taking some garbage from Thurston and.
I was just gonna say I just rolled the garbage out to the street a couple of half hour ago, or maybe longer because we've been on here. But yep.
Well, no, like that was me taking garbage from him and Logan Thomas, who is a negative asset, and then giving a comparable pick in 2018, a 3rd round pick this year, and then a couple smaller guys. Yeah, honestly, for this one, I was trying to get in the mid-20s because I was looking at drafting someone particularly. I didn't think I was going to be able to get as high as 19. Everyone in the 20s was kind of shooting me down for most of what I was selling. I was really happy to be able to get the 19 for this.
Yeah, I would be too because it's an awful trade. The next trade is Tucci traded Funchess and the 21st pick to Hess for Tevin Coleman, the 17th and 26th pick. I thought this was a trade that made sense for both sides.
Yeah, I was gonna say I love this trade. It's like a real trade.
Yeah, Hess needed receivers and Tucci needed running backs, and both guys have promise. Tucci, what was your thought process?
I mean, I wanted Tevin Coleman coming out of Indiana. I wasn't able to get him in the draft. I think now was the perfect time to buy him with Devonta Freeman's surgence. And yeah, I mean, I am a Funchess guy. I think Funchess is better than Kelvin Benjamin at his job. I think Kelvin Benjamin stinks. But wide receiver is a luxury for me. So and Hess has everyone on the Carolina Panthers, so it made sense.
All right, the next pick was another Nick and Thurston trade, surprisingly. It was the 19th pick, the 50th pick, and 7th waiver priority for the 18th pick and 16th waiver priority.
So, yeah.
Whatever.
Well, no, I just want to say real quick. This trade came after Thurston put in his waiver bid for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
So it brings him back into a little bit better of a waiver priority and get an additional pick.
These last two trades are both involving Tucci. The first one is Lance Dunbar, the 13th pick, and the 2017 first-round pick of Tucci to the Odabenes for Dante Moncrief. Tucci touched on Moncrief a little bit earlier. Tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on Moncrief and why you traded two first-round
picks. He's just a fucking stud. God, look at this guy. This guy's metrics, his production in college, the situation. T.Y. Hilton is, average wide receiver. I think he's pretty much a opportunity guy. Andrew Luck's his quarterback. I mean, there's not much to dislike from Dante Moncrief. I think this is a huge year for him. Super high on him coming out of the draft 2 years ago. I've been trying to get him. I tried to get him from Hess for a while. And much to my surprise, I was able to get him from the Odabenes, which was crazy. But yeah, a target of mine for 2 years, and I couldn't be happier.
No, real quick, I want to say, like, if you like a guy and you feel like you will pay whatever it takes to get
Jerick
him,
McKinnon.
it's one of those situations. It's one of those situations where. There you go. It's one of those situations where if you want to overpay a little bit to get a guy you want, I do think it's okay. I've been guilty of this plenty of times. So if you wanted him that bad, go get him. Who cares?
I mean, honestly, if you guys, what don't you like about Dante Moncrief? I mean, tell me. I'd be willing to listen.
For me, I like Moncrief a lot. I like him as a buy low guy. I think that the price is more in line with an established player. Because if you look at it, for 2 more first-round picks, you're talking OBJ value, and I'd rather have OBJ than Dante Moncrief in 2 first-round picks.
Well, I'll go on record. For OBJ. Yes, that's a different class. But I will go on record saying that I think Dante Moncrief is better than Laquan Treadwell. So that's the way I felt going into this deal.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I also think Laquan Treadwell sucks. So
there you go.
But anyway, I guess if you're looking at it that way, and he's still relatively young, I think he's like 22 or 23.
Yeah, he'll be 23 in this offseason.
Yeah. So last trade was
also in a hell of a situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had a stroke hearing that.
What, the Treadwell?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
Anyway, Tucci got a 5-year re-signing he used on Golden Tate for the 17th overall pick. And, this was a situation where J-Mac kind of like went dark, pun intended, or not intended, sorry, on me.
We almost created a whole podcast.
Here we go.
We were doing so well.
I was trying to get that re-signing from him, but because he tried to trade that re-signing for any second-round pick this year, and I went out and got a second-round pick, and he doesn't answer me.
So did I. I did the same thing.
Yeah.
Broadbent, he actually said, like, he gave me the deal that you had offered him, so I said, okay, I will beat this deal. I will get you a second-round pick that is better than the one Broadbent was offering in his deal. Just so happened was I got the 17th overall back in that trade, and so he saw that. I was like, but the 26 is better, and he's like, no, I want the 17 now. So like he just the price went up as soon as he saw that I had acquired that. Anyway, though, it was a reasonable price for me. It gives me flexibility to re-sign unnamed player this year and to re-sign unnamed player next year. So yeah. So it just like a flexibility move for me,
Nice.
Gotcha.
So basically, he wouldn't take Josh Gordon, so you offered him 17th?
No, man, Johnny Mac wants Josh Gordon.
Josh Gordon is not under contract, so Josh Gordon cannot be traded.
He cannot be traded at the moment. So yeah, I probably can't talk about that until he is signed to a deal.
I'm sorry. So you offered him unnamed player re-signed, and he wouldn't take it?
No. That was a separate conversation.
No, I think you right in that range what I'd pay for a re-sign, maybe a little high, but overall not a bad deal.
It was a little high again. This, I don't know. I'm not finished with my assessment of this year's draft class, but so far, not so good. And it was, I was willing to pay it, I guess.
Good point.
Yeah. So we were initially going to have three main discussion topics, and this is why I really don't like talking about trades, is because they just drag on forever. So maybe we'll save this for the next time. What do you guys think? You guys want to talk about the last segment or no?
I'd like to do fun outro.
Fun outro.
Yeah, let's do fun outro.
On our notes.
All right, we should. As much as I want to talk about this, let's just go to the outro.
All right, we'll do this next time. So I thought of a really funny segment today at work. It would have taken so much work to actually have done, but for the next podcast, we're going to have a really awesome segment at the end. But for this one, it's going to be a little less fun. It's going to be, we're all going to go around, and somebody who isn't on your team, let's name the one player that you'd love to have on your team that you don't have on your team right now, permanently in dynasty purposes. So, Jack, give me a name. A man needs a name.
Rob Gronkowski.
Why's that? Hold on, let me get my thing
I
out.
just think to have that kind of production at that position it's such an advantage. I mean, you could consider saying Andrew Luck, but he's on the podcast right now, so fuck him. No, but seriously, like I wanted him from the year when we were going to talk about the inaugural draft. I was going to have a little segment about Rob Gronkowski and how I almost got him, and I don't know. I know he's not as young anymore, but tight ends play for a long time, and just to have him at that position performing and putting up points like a friggin' number one receiver is just fucking retarded. So that's who I would say.
What are you, TJ?
Oh man, this is tough. I could like lie and manipulate, the landscape. No, I think to be honest with you, I think it's probably somebody you mentioned earlier. I would say it's Todd Gurley. I think although he's a running back and I don't value them as high as wide receivers, I think he's a pretty special player. And that's someone that I would definitely love to have on the team.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to be different, but I'm not. Todd Gurley would be the number one guy that I'd like to add to my team because it would fill a need in depth, and I think that he's a guy that's he's shown enough already, and he's very young. He's going to be very good for a while. I'd be surprised if he's not. And yeah, like we're in this weird position now where I think outside of like OBJ, who I just don't like for whatever reason, I just honestly don't like him. But we were spoiled with this golden age of AJ, Julio, Dez, this like the holy triumvirate with Calvin and Demaryius sprinkled in. I don't feel like we have that right now. So there's not this like 23, 24-year-old wide receiver that like I'm crazy about, unless you talk maybe like Sammy Watkins, but I'd go Todd Gurley.
Yeah, for me it's OBJ. To do what he's done at 21 and 22, only 23 years old, and he doesn't really. He's the only thing that worries me about him is he's got a history of hamstring injuries, and I hope that doesn't at any point hamper him in any way. But to have the production he's already had at such a young age, it's just amazing. And he's not winning with size or with any specific elite ability. He's just a great wide receiver all around. So that's the guy I would take.
OBJ was my number 2. I don't think I was going to name a running back simply because they're running backs. And somebody mentioned earlier that he gets injured. We're not going to be talking about that. But we are now.
I mentioned a running back. It's terrible.
Yeah, I would say pretty unanimously, Rob Gronkowski is the number 1 dynasty tight end. OBJ is the number 1 dynasty wide receiver, and Todd Gurley is the number 1 dynasty running back. It's barely.
He passed Bell?
Yeah, for sure.
He passed Bell?
Sure. For me,
1 year production, and that's all it takes?
It's pretty crazy how quickly running backs pass top running backs.
1 year, huh?
Like, I guarantee Ezekiel Elliott will probably be the 3rd or 4th highest rated dynasty running back once he gets a team.
Easily, yep.
A couple of years ago, it was Trent Richardson, right?
Well, for Le'Veon Bell, you can make the 1 year argument for in the other direction. He had 1 year of productivity, and then he produced early this year before getting hurt. He was really not good at all his rookie year. He suffered through, I think, a Liz Frank injury. And then he dominated, absolutely dominated.
I didn't rank him number 1. I'm just saying, it's like it takes that. There's your good and your bad right there.
Yeah.
Le'Veon it can work, it can't work.
Le'Veon
and at the end of the day, they usually trail off at a pretty early age, unless you're Adrian Peterson.
Speaking of trailing off, I think this podcast is going on way longer than we thought it would. I want to thank you guys in the future for listening to this, because you're not listening to it now because we have 0 viewers.
This would talk forever.
Yeah. Next time, there's going to be some fun discussion, hopefully at the end. This is Mike Broadbent signing off. You guys got anything that you want to say to the viewers?
Ladarius Green signed for only $5 million per year. Is that crazy?
Yeah, it's 4
years, $20 million. Cheap.
That's all I got. That's who you're sending the listeners off on?
That's all I got. I'll be Flaner. Woo!
I'd like to say that the great QB drought of our time is on its way. Gather all of your QBs and keep them close.
Huddle them down in the storm shelter.
It's coming. Yeah. So keep that in mind.
Maybe Deshaun Watson can save us.
Maybe. I don't know, man.
Jack.
I got nothing. This is Yakadelphia signing off.
See you later, motherfuckers.